we saw the quote, but this is the actual soundbite about Bo Pelini.
So excited that Bo Pelini chose to come back. As you know, Bo had some of the top defenses in the SEC in the country. We're a 4-3 defense. We're an attacking defense. I felt that that's what we needed to change from a 3-4 to 4-3 because it fit our style and also fit our players.
Jacob, you touched on this yesterday, that this is just in Ed's comfort zone of what he wants to do defensively. So I'm going to ask you to expound on it a little bit more and some of the things that you think they can do with this defensive personnel.
Just when you look at who Bo is and what he's done his entire career, and kind of my theme yesterday was he's going to be the aggressor. He's not going to be the counterpuncher. He is not going to wait to see what you do. He's going to bring the fight to you, and we all know Coach O loves that style. And I realize you do have some 3-4 personnel, and how do they translate, to a 4-3 defense? The transition there, let's not worry about that, because when we had Bo Pelini on our show a couple of weeks ago, well, I guess that was a couple months ago now. Time seems a little different there, Haney.
I understand.
Yeah, so when he was on, he's like, look, it's not like I haven't done these things before. It's not going to be, hey, we're going to line up in a 4-3 under defense with a Sam linebacker on the line of scrimmage. No, we're going to be a multiple defense. Are we going to have 4-3 principles? Yeah, you bet. But he's like, I've done everything. If I feel like a 3-4 in this front is going to help us in this game, in this scenario, we can do that. And so I think you put too much into – okay, well, he was recruited to be a zero nose. Look, Tyler Shelvin, who Cole Kublik of the SEC Network, who breaks down line play better than anybody I know, has him as his top interior defense lineman in the conference. He's going to thrive at whatever you put him at. If he's playing a 3, if he's playing a 1 shade. And Bo Pelini said that. He goes, hey, if you're playing a shade, you're playing a shade. It doesn't matter if you're playing a shade on a center or a guard. If you're playing a shade, we are going to ask you to do A, B, or C. And so I think a lot of people put too much stock into, well, personnel has been recruited for a 3-4, because in the way college defenses are now, I don't think that's going to be as important, and you're going to do multiple things. But going back to my original point, being the aggressor, being that team that brings guys from multiple areas and multiple levels, and you're switching guys in and out. My best example yesterday, was Chad Jones. Chad Jones wasn't a starter in 07. Craig Stelz and Curtis Taylor were your starting safeties. But there was a role for Chad Jones to come in, and when he came in, he was going to be the aggressive safety who did, the X factor things. And, we typically didn't see that, the past couple of years. And so for me, Bo Pelini is going to have a role for guys like that, to bring them in, and their only role is to, hey, you're going to be the guy who blitzes off the edge, who blitzes up the middle, who, is man coverage because they've got Pitts at tight end, and he's a really good player, and our safeties don't match up with him, but you do in this scenario, in this situation.
Yeah, I mean, I start to think of some of the guys who are going to have a role on the defense. Like, I think that you're going to Jacoby Stevens is the first one that comes to mind as somebody that doesn't necessarily have just a keyhole that you fit him in. I hear the name B.J. Ojulari all the time, and that's a guy that they really like on the edge a little bit. Kerry Vincent is, of course, going to play a lot of nickel. And when you start talking about 4-3, 3-4, they're going to be in nickel and dime more than half the time anyway. That's just the way that they play defense in this era, and that's the way the conference is going. So I don't put a ton of stock into that they've got to totally reinvent the wheel to throw a cliche in there. They're just going to use a lot of good players and play good defense.
And even when you're talking about nickel and dime, and Haney, you and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, you can still, it's a 4-3 defense, but your Sam's going to be a nickel Sam. It's not going to be a linebacker. So you'll still have some of those same principles, but it's going to be different personnel out there. And if you're kind of wondering what I'm talking about, go back right now in the SEC Network, if you can stomach it, the Arkansas LSU game is on from 2007. Kind of look at the position that a Luke Sanders plays. He was the Sam linebacker. Well, we played a ton of under defense because that's what everyone in college was doing, because you had teams that were running the football, doing different things. You won't see that. There will Perry Riley on the line of scrimmage playing Sam linebacker. Like LSU fans remember, that's just not how you play it anymore. So it's going to look different from the first time, but there's still going to be some of those principles, just with different guys doing it. Like when we're talking about a nickel Sam, and like a Kerry Vincent's probably going to play.
And a good rotation up front to keep people fresh, because defensive linemen, they got
some great players up front, led by Tyler Shelvin and Glen Logan, who's coming back. Tyler's a little heavy right now. He's got to get his weight down, but I do believe he will. Apu Ika is down to 330, a slim 330, came at 390. And I want you to remember these names now: Jacqueline Roy, Jacoby Ojulari, and Eric Taylor. 3 outstanding interior defensive linemen. And then on the outside, we have Andre Anthony, who I think the 4-3 fits him very good. B.J. Ojulari, who I believe is going to be an All-American here, and Phillip Webb. Those are 2 freshmen. This is probably the best freshman class that I've seen in a long time. Justin Thomas is back with us. He's going to play right in. At left end, Ali Gay. Ali's a junior college player. Bill Bush recruited him. Ali's about 6'6", 250, runs very fast, very athletic. And then another guy that's really having a good camp is Chavez Moore, doing a great job. Jarrell Cherry and Sony's there. So we got 4 deep on the defensive line, and we're very fired up about it.
Asked him about defensive linemen. He named 114 guys. And I just love the fact that he refers to Apu-Ika as a slim 330 because I knew exactly what he meant because we saw him in camp last year, probably 30 pounds heavier than that. So pick your favorite one. In Kubelik's rankings, he also had Glen Logan in his top 5, I believe.
Yeah, so he had Tyler Shelvin at 1. He had Glen Logan at 5. And Glen Logan, to me, was an undervalued player a year ago. And I think this system actually fits him better than the old 3-4 system did. I see him being a guy that can really play a really good 3 technique. And remember when Glen Logan was out last year? I mean, that was something that showed up on LSU's defense. And so he might not be a superstar as far as guys you recognize, but this is a guy that is going to be as important as almost anybody on the LSU defense.
Same position type as Benny Logan. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's kind of what I thought. And I hadn't even heard. I've heard Ogeron on this station with Jordy and T-Bob talk about Ojulari. I had not heard that sound they just played where he said he's going to be an All-American. But I think they're looking for somebody to rush the passer. They don't have a guy that they can point to and go, that we know what we're going to get from that guy. And there are some guys that have been around a long time that, quite frankly, have not produced. I like the young blood.
And so look, you can always tell who the impressive freshmen are by everyone in the building, not just Coach O. Obviously, Coach O is going to raise his guys up. But when BJ walked in from day one, it was the equipment staff, the training staff, the people in the dining hall. They're like, hey, you seen that kid? And after they saw him just a couple times work out, I remember going over there and Moffitt and Connor Neighbors are like, hey, just wait till you see this guy. And so when it's everybody in the building and not just your head coach, you start to get excited about him. So that's probably going to be my freshman that I lock in on almost every time he's on the field this year.
Put a lot of stock into what those guys say because they're around him so much.
Every day. They know. You can learn more from people like that around the program than anybody because they can tell you, is the guy doing the right things? Is he on time? Is he coming on here on 2 wheels, bumping over the railroad tracks to try to make the workouts on time? Is he preparing? Is he the first guy out of the building when practice is over, or does he linger around and talk to his coaches, his teammates? Does he treat us nice? Does he treat the student manager at the window who he's asking for a pair of socks? Does he treat him in the right way, or does he disrespect him? All of those things, they add up, and it never fails. Almost every name that they give you, they're really good on the football field. I mean, their guy, they kept telling me about Clyde Edwards-Helaire for a year, like, hey, man, I'm just telling you, this guy's built a little different. When he gets his chance, he's going to thrive. And this is before we even we knew who he was because he went to Catholic High and he's a local kid. But before that, right? But they kept talking. And so you'll get stories from guys like that. You can learn a lot of information from the people inside the building.
Because if you take care of the little things, you're just quite naturally going to take care of the big things.
Absolutely. They can count on you. They can trust you. Now, in almost every time a guy flakes out, from day one, they're like, oh, guys, this guy's going to be a headache for 3 years.
And those guys,
they flake out.